Chapter 17, Maniac Magee. It was a hot day in August. It was so hot if you stood too long in the vacant lot, the sun bouncing off a chunk of broken glass or metal would fry a patch on your hide. It was so hot if you were packing candy you had soup in your pocket by 2 o'clock. It was so hot the dogs were tripping on their own tongues. And so hot the fire hydrant at Green and Chestnut was gushing like Niagara Falls, courtesy of somebody wrenching off the cap. By the time Maniac and the rest of the vacant lot regulars got there, Chestnut and Green was a cross between a block party and a swimming pool. Radios blaring, people blaring, somebody selling lemonade, somebody selling Kool-Aid ice cubes on toothpicks, body, skin, colors, water, gleaming, buttery, warm, cool, wet, screaming happy. The younger you were, the fewer clothes you had on. Grown-ups on the sidewalk were dangling their bare feet in the running gutters. Teenagers stripped down to their bathing suits and cut-off shorts. Little kids were in their underwear, and the littlest kids had nothing. Maniac danced and pranced and screamed at the rest. He learned how to jump in front of the gusher and let it propel him halfway across the street. He joined in the snake dance. He got goofy. He drenched himself in all wet and warm and happy. When he first heard the voice, he didn't think much of it. Just one voice. One voice in hundreds, but then the other voices were falling away in bunches, until only this one was left. It was a strange voice. It was deep and thick and sort of clotted, as though it had to fight its way through a can of worms before coming out. The voice was behind him, saying the same word over and over. It was calling, a name. And even then, Maniac turned only because he was curious, wondering what everybody was staring at. But when he saw the brown finger pointed at him, not a speck of icing on it, and the brown arm that aimed it, and the brown face behind it, he knew the name coming out of the can of worms mouth was his. Whitey! And it surprised him that he knew. He just stood there, blinking through the water-drop sun blur, the hydrant gusher smacking his thin, bare ankles. The radios, the people, were silent. You move on now, Whitey, the man said. You pick up your gear and move on out. Time to go home now. The man was close enough to catching some water around his shoes, which Maniac noticed were actually slippers. His pants were baggy, and his shirt wasn't really a shirt, but a pajama top, covered with high-tailed roosters. White hair curled around his ears. Maniac gave his answer. I am home. The man took a step closer and dropped his arm. You go on home now, son. Back to your own kind. I seen you at the block party. Now you get going. Maniac stepped out of the gusher and the water roared onto the opposite curb. This is where I live. I live right down there, he pointed toward Sycamore. The man did not seem to notice. Never enough, is it, Whitey? Just want more and more. Won't even leave us our little water in the street. You come on down to see Bojangles, to the zoo. Come and see the monkey house. He must be hard of hearing, Maniac thought. So he called it out really loud and slow and pointed again. I live at 728 Sycamore. I do. The old man stepped closer. You got your own kind. It's how you want it. Let's keep it that way. Now move on. Your kind's waiting. And he flung his finger westward. Up there. Suddenly Hester and Lester were by Maniac's side, and they were barking at the man. You leave him alone, you old wag pickle. You shut your mouth. And the man was croaking and ranting, not to Maniac, but now to all the people. What happens when we go over there? Black is black. White is white. The sheep not lie with the lion. The sheep knows his own kind. A woman rushed over, pulling him away up the street. Our own kind. Our own kind. And the water thundered across the silent street. Maniac, who was one of the world's great sleepers, did not sleep well that night or the next. He started getting up earlier than usual, not to sneak home, not to sneak some time with the A-book, but just to go out and run. Bow Wow wasn't even ready for his morning pee yet, but he did go along. Usually Maniac just jogged around the East End, but now he did the whole town, plus over the river to Bridgeport. By the third day, Bow Wow refused to go along for the run. One morning, as Maniac was heading home, Hester and Lester came running up Sycamore. Maniac, come on, we're going to run too. Let's go that way. They tried to turn him around, but he told them to just hold on a minute. He wanted to stop home for a quick drink, and then he'd go running with them. They kept yelling and tugging and pushing and grabbing his legs. And then Amanda was pedaling frantically up to him, slapping on a quick smile and gasping, Hey, I'm going to the store. You want to come along? Maniac checked the sun. It was hardly up to the second stories. Stores aren't open yet, he said. Amanda just gawked. She was a rotten liar, and Maniac knew. He shook loose from the little ones and he trotted on. He didn't know what, but something must be wrong. The little ones jabbered and screeched and grabbed, but he ran faster and faster. Mrs. Beale was out front with the yellow bucket, soap suds spilling over the brim, a stiff bristle brush in her hand. She was scrubbing the house, the brick wall, scrubbing furiously at the chalk, grunting with the effort. Her cheeks were wet. He had been way too early and way too fast. Only the F had been scrubbed away. The rest was quite easy to read. The tall, yellow letters, the same color as the scrub bucket. Ishbelly, go home.